The sun beat down on the crowded mall parking lot that Saturday afternoon in early June. People hurried in and out of the shopping center, arms loaded with bags, minds focused on their own needs and wants. Nobody paid much attention to 16-year-old Zaria as she carefully guided her wheelchair between rows of cars. This was only her third time out alone since her diagnosis. The doctors had explained that her condition would slowly affect her muscle control, starting in her legs and eventually spreading upward. Her parents had been hesitant to let her go shopping by herself, but Zaria had insisted. "I need to learn how to do this," she had told them firmly at breakfast that morning. "I can't stay home forever." Now, as sweat beaded on her forehead, she wondered if maybe they'd been right to worry. The parking lot was much busier than she'd expected. Cars circled like vultures hunting for empty spaces, and shoppers darted between vehicles without looking. Twice already someone had nearly tripped over her chair. "Just get to the bus stop," Zaria whispered to herself, gripping the controls tighter. The bus that would take her home was scheduled to arrive in 15 minutes. She just needed to navigate this concrete maze without incident. The space between cars narrowed as she turned down a row of vehicles. On her right stood a beaten-up old pickup truck, parked crookedly and taking up more than its fair share of space. On her left gleamed a spotless white SUV that probably cost more than her parents' house. Zaria took a deep breath and inched forward. Carefully, she almost made it. Almost. The right wheel of her chair caught on an uneven section of pavement. The chair jerked suddenly to the left, and Zaria felt the horrible sensation of metal scraping against metal. A harsh, grating sound filled the air as the side of her wheelchair dragged along the pristine door of the expensive SUV. "No, no, no," Zaria gasped, immediately stopping her chair. Her heart pounded in her chest as she looked at the damage, a long, ugly scratch marring the perfect white paint. The sunlight caught the scratch, making it look even worse than it probably was. Tears welled in her eyes. She hadn't meant to do it. The chair was still new to her, still difficult to control sometimes. What would the owner say? What would they do? Her parents didn't have money for expensive repairs. Panic rose in her throat as she heard footsteps approaching from behind. Someone was coming. The owner? What terrible timing. Zaria tried to think of what to say, how to explain, but her mind went blank with fear. "Hey there, is everything okay?" a deep voice asked. Zaria turned her chair slowly, bracing for anger, for shouting. Instead, she found herself looking up at a tall man in his 40s, wearing a business suit with the sleeves rolled up. He carried a shopping bag in one hand and car keys in the other. The expression on his face wasn't anger, it was concern. I'm so sorry," Zaria stammered, pointing at the scratch. "My wheelchair. I didn't mean to. The pavement." The man, clearly the owner of the expensive SUV, stepped forward to inspect the damage. Zaria held her breath. This was the moment when everything would go wrong. He would yell at her, demand payment, maybe even call security. Instead, he surprised her by shrugging his shoulders. "That's nothing to worry about," he said, his voice gentle. "Cars get scratched all the time. That's what insurance is for." Zaria blinked in disbelief. But I damaged your car." "It's just a car," he replied, smiling at her. "Are you okay? You seem upset." Was she okay? The question caught her off guard. Nobody had asked her that in a while, at least not strangers. Usually people either stared at her wheelchair or pretended not to see it at all. "I'm fine," she said, "just embarrassed, and worried you'd be angry." The man shook his head. "Life's too short to get worked up over a scratch. My brother used a wheelchair for years before he passed. I know how hard these parking lots can be to navigate." Zaria felt the knot in her chest loosen slightly. "Thank you for understanding. Most people wouldn't be so nice. Most people forget we're all just one accident or diagnosis away from needing help ourselves," he replied. He glanced around the parking lot. "Are you here alone? Can I help you get somewhere?" "I'm heading to the bus stop," Zaria explained, pointing toward the mall entrance where the public transit stopped. "My parents are at work, so I came shopping by myself. That's the bus that goes downtown, right?" Mind if I walk with you? I'm heading that direction anyway. Zarya nodded, relief washing over her. As they made their way across the parking lot, she learned that the man owned a small business that helped people find affordable housing. He asked about her interests and seemed genuinely impressed when she talked about her love for computer programming. My company could use someone with coding skills, he told her. We have a website that needs serious work. When you're ready for a part-time job, come see me. He handed her a business card before they reached the bus stop. Neither of them noticed. The security camera mounted on a light pole above them, silently recording their entire interaction. Neither could have guessed how that footage would be twisted and misused in the days to come, or how their lives would change because of it. As the bus pulled up, the man waved goodbye. Don't worry about the scratch, he called out. And remember what I said about the job. Zarya smiled and waved back, tucking the business card into her pocket. For the first time since her diagnosis, she felt a spark of hope about her future. Sometimes kindness came from the most unexpected places. What she didn't know was that their simple parking lot encounter was about to become something much bigger than either of them could imagine. Monday morning arrived with no warning of what was coming. Zarya woke up feeling good about her weekend adventure. She had managed to navigate the mall by herself, and even though there had been that scary moment with the car, it had turned out better than she could have imagined. The business owner had been so understanding, even offering her a potential job opportunity. She had spent Sunday researching his company online and was thinking about calling the number on his card. Miles away, that same business owner started his Monday like any other, with coffee, emails, and a team meeting about upcoming projects. His weekend encounter with the teenager in the wheelchair had been a brief, pleasant moment in an otherwise ordinary Saturday. He had thought about his late brother while talking to her, remembering how people had sometimes treated him differently after his accident. It felt good to offer a bit of kindness where he could. Neither of them had any idea that at that very moment, a mall security guard was uploading a video to his personal social media account. Look at this, the guard's post read. Rich guy catches disabled girl scratching his luxury car. What happens next will shock you. The security footage was grainy but clear enough to show Zarya's wheelchair scraping against the SUV. But the video had been edited, cut and arranged to make it appear as if the business owner was gesturing, angrily, pointing at the damage and then at Zarya. The final clip showed him taking out his wallet, which in reality had been to give her his business card, but the video cut off before showing this part. What the video didn't show, his smile, their friendly conversation, or him walking her to the bus stop. By noon, the video had been shared thousands of times. By 2 o'clock, it had reached hundreds of thousands of views. By dinner time, it was going truly viral with millions of views across different platforms. The comment section exploded with outrage. This poor girl, how could he treat her that way? Just another rich person thinking, they can push around those less fortunate. Someone find out who this man is so we can boycott his business. That poor child must have been terrified. The video made its way into private messaging groups where people began trying to identify the business owner. It didn't take long before someone recognized him and shared his company name and contact information. Zarya knew nothing about any of this until her phone started buzzing nonstop during her afternoon math class. When she finally checked it between periods, she found dozens of messages from friends and even people she barely knew. Is this you in this video? OMG, are you okay? I can't believe that happened to you. Confused, she opened the link someone had sent. Her stomach dropped as she watched the edited footage. That wasn't how it happened at all. The business owner had been nothing but kind to her. The video made it look like he had been threatening her, when in reality, he had been offering her help. This is all wrong, she whispered to herself, standing frozen in the hallway as students pushed past her. How had this happened, and how fast was it spreading? She tried calling her parents, but neither answered. Both were at work and couldn't take personal calls during their shifts. Panic rising in her throat, Zarya wheeled herself to the school counselor's office, hoping for advice. Meanwhile, the business owner was in the middle of a client meeting when his assistant burst in, face pale. I'm sorry to interrupt, the assistant said, "but there's something you need to see right away." The business owner excused himself and followed his assistant to the front office, where the phone lines were lighting up like a Christmas tree. "What's going on?" he asked. His assistant turned a computer monitor toward him. "This video is everywhere. People think you threatened a disabled teenager over a car scratch. We're getting flooded with angry calls and messages. Someone even posted your home address in a comment thread." The business owner stared at the screen in disbelief as he watched the doctored footage. "That's not what happened. We had a nice conversation. I gave her my card and offered her a job." But it was too late. The damage was already spreading. Local news stations had picked up the story, running headlines like "Local Businessman Confronts Disabled Teen" and "Community Outraged Over Mall Parking Lot Incident." By the time Zaria got home from school, there were 2 news vans parked outside her family's apartment building. A reporter approached her as soon as she got off the public bus. "Zaria, can you tell us about your confrontation with the businessman on Saturday? How are you feeling about the public support?" She stared at the reporter in shock. How did they know her name? How did they know where she lived? Her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize, but she answered it anyway, desperate for some explanation of what was happening. "Zaria, this is the man from the parking lot on Saturday. I got your number from your school counselor. I think we need to talk about what's happening." His voice sounded tired and worried, nothing like the confident man she had met. In the background, she could hear phones ringing constantly. "I don't understand how this happened," Zaria said, her voice shaking. "That's not what happened between us at all." "I know," he replied. "But right now the whole country thinks I threatened you. My business is getting death threats, and I'm worried about you too. Are you safe? Are people bothering you?" Zaria looked at the news vans and the gathering crowd of curious neighbors. "Not exactly safe," she admitted. "We need to fix this," he said firmly. "But we'll need to work together. Are your parents home?" Zaria spotted her mother's car turning into the parking lot, her father in the passenger seat. They both looked confused and alarmed at the scene unfolding outside their home. "They just got here," she told him, "and I think they're about to find out what's going on." "Talk to them," he advised. "Explain everything, then call me back. We need to get ahead of this story before it gets even more out of control." As Zaria hung up, she watched her parents push through the small crowd toward her. How could she explain that a simple accident in a parking lot had somehow turned into national news? And more importantly, how could they fix it before more damage was done to both their lives? The truth was out there, caught on camera. But it wasn't the version the world was seeing. And changing people's minds once they believed they knew the truth would be harder than any challenge Zaria had faced since. Her diagnosis. By Tuesday morning, life had completely changed for both Zaria and the business owner. The small apartment where Zaria lived with her parents had become the center of unwanted attention. Her father had to call in sick to work because reporters wouldn't stop knocking on their door. Her mother pulled the curtains shut after seeing someone with a camera trying to peek through their windows. "I can't believe this is happening," Zaria's father said, pacing the living room, all because of a scratched car. He had watched the viral video dozens of times, growing angrier with each viewing. "That's not how you described it at all." "Because that's not what happened," Zaria insisted, fighting back tears. "He was nice. To me? Really nice. The video is cut to make it look different." Her mother sat beside her, one hand on Zaria's shoulder. "We believe you, sweetheart. But right now, a lot of other people don't." Zaria's phone buzzed with another notification. Her school friends had started a hashtag, "Find Justice for Zaria." It was trending locally. People she didn't even know were posting supportive messages for her and angry threats toward the business owner. Her social media accounts had gained thousands of followers overnight. Strangers who thought they were supporting her. "I never asked for any of this," she whispered. Across town, the situation was even worse for the business owner. The front door of his small company was spray-painted with the word bully in bright red letters. His employees had been harassed on their way into work. 3 clients had already called to cancel contracts. The phone rang constantly with angry calls from strangers who had seen the video. "You need to make a statement," his lawyer advised, "during an emergency meeting. Get ahead of this, explain your side." "And say what?" the business owner asked, exhausted after a sleepless night. "That I was actually being nice? Who's going to believe that when there's video that seems to show otherwise?" "We could sue whoever posted that edited video," another colleague suggested. The lawyer shook his head. "By the time we identified them and got through the legal process, the damage would already be done. We need to act now." Just then, the business owner's cell phone rang. It was Zaria's father. "My daughter told us everything," he said, his voice tight with stress. "About the scratch, about you offering her a job. She says the video is a lie." "It is," the business owner confirmed, feeling a wave of relief that at least someone believed him. "I would never threaten a teenager, especially not one who just had an accident." "I believe you," Zaria's father said, "but the problem is bigger than both of us now. There are protesters gathering outside your office building. Did you know that?" The business owner walked to the window and peered through the blinds. Sure enough, about 20 people had gathered on the sidewalk, holding signs with slogans like "Disabled Lives Matter" and "Stop Bullying Our Kids." "I see them," he said quietly. "And my daughter can't even go to school today because there are news vans camped outside our apartment," Zaria's father continued. "This has to stop, for both our families." They agreed to meet that afternoon at a coffee shop far from both their homes, away from the media attention. The business owner would bring his lawyer, Zaria's parents would bring her. But even this simple plan proved difficult to execute. When the business owner tried to leave his office, the small crowd of protesters blocked his car. Someone recognized him and started shouting. A paper cup of coffee hit his windshield. He had to call the police to escort him safely from his own parking lot. Meanwhile, Zaria's family had to sneak out their back door and cut through a neighbor's yard to avoid the reporters. Zaria's wheelchair made this especially difficult. They had to lift her over several obstacles, an experience that left her feeling helpless and frustrated. By the time both parties arrived at the coffee shop, they were stressed and on edge. The business owner arrived first, sitting in a corner booth with his lawyer. When Zaria entered with her parents, the business owner stood up. "Thank you for coming," he said, offering his hand to Zaria's father. "This is a terrible situation for all of us." They all sat down, an uncomfortable silence falling over the table. The lawyer opened his briefcase and pulled out some papers. "I've drafted a joint statement," he explained. "If we both tell the same story and stick to it, we might be able to contain this." Zaria looked at the business owner, really studying his face for the first time. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. His suit was wrinkled, his tie slightly crooked. This wasn't the confident man she had met in the parking lot. "I'm sorry about your car," she said suddenly. "I still feel bad about that." He looked up, surprised. Then he smiled, a real smile that reached his eyes. "I told you then, and I'll tell you now, it's just a car. What's happening to both of us because of that video is much worse than a scratch on a door." Something in the room shifted. The tension eased slightly as they all remembered they were just people caught in a strange situation, not enemies. "The full video would show the truth," Zaria's mother pointed out. "Doesn't the mall have the original security footage?" The lawyer nodded. "We've requested it, but these things take time. And by the time we get it, the damage might already be done." "So what do we do?" Zaria asked, looking around the table at the adults. Her father leaned forward. "We tell the truth. Together, we hold a press conference and show a united front. We explain what really happened." "Will people believe us?" the business owner asked. "Once people make up their minds about something, it's hard to change them." "Some won't," Zaria's father admitted. "But some will. And that's a start." As they discussed the details of how to proceed, Zaria's phone buzzed with a new notification. She glanced down and froze. "What is it?" her mother asked, noticing her expression. Zaria turned her phone around so everyone could see the screen. Someone had posted a new video, this one showing protesters breaking the windows of the business owner's car, which had been left in his office parking lot after the police escorted him away. "This has to stop," she said, her voice stronger than she expected. "And we have to be the ones to stop it." The video of protesters smashing the business owner's car windows changed everything. As they all stared at Zaria's phone screen in the coffee shop, a heavy silence fell over the table. "This isn't right," Zaria said finally, looking up at the business owner. "None of this is right." Her father nodded in agreement. "This has gone too far. People are using you both to fuel their own anger." The business owner's lawyer cleared his throat. "We need to act quickly. Every hour this continues, the situation gets worse." They spent the next hour creating a plan. Instead of hiding from the media, they would face it head-on. The business owner called a local reporter he had worked with in the past, someone he trusted to be fair. Zaria's parents contacted the school principal to arrange use of the auditorium for a press conference the next morning. "But will anyone believe us?" Zaria asked as they prepared to leave. "It's our word against what people think they saw in the video." "We need proof," her mother said simply. That's when the business owner's lawyer had an idea. "The mall security office. They'll have the complete unedited footage. If we can get that." "My cousin works at the mall," Zaria said suddenly. "She's on the cleaning crew. She knows the head of security." The business owner looked at her with newfound hope. "Can you call her?" One phone call led to another, and by evening, Zaria's cousin had arranged a meeting with the head of mall security. The man was hesitant at first. Security footage wasn't usually released to the public, but when he saw the damage the edited video had caused, he agreed to help. "I can't give you the actual footage to take with you," he explained as they all crowded into his small office after the mall closed. "But I can show you the full recording and make a copy for the police or for a court, if needed." They all watched, in silence, as the security monitor showed the complete interaction in the parking lot. There was Zaria, accidentally scratching the car. There was the business owner approaching her. And there, clear as day, was his kind smile, his reassuring gestures, and finally him walking her to the bus stop. "This changes everything," the lawyer said, already typing on his phone. "We need this footage for the press conference tomorrow." The security chief hesitated. "I'd need authorization from mall management. People's lives are being ruined," Zaria's father said quietly. "My daughter can't go to school. His business is being vandalized, all because someone edited this footage to tell a different story." The security chief looked at Zaria, then at the business owner. Finally, he nodded. "I'll call the mall manager, right now. But I can't promise anything." They left the mall with a glimmer of hope. The security chief had promised to do his best, but they wouldn't know until morning if they'd have the footage for the press conference. That night, neither Zaria nor the business owner slept much. Social media continued to buzz with opinions, hashtags, and calls for justice, all based on a lie. Local TV news ran the story on their late-night broadcasts, showing the edited footage yet again, despite pleas from the lawyer to wait for the full story. Morning came with a small miracle. The mall manager had not only approved the release of the complete security footage, but had also agreed to attend the press conference personally to verify its authenticity. By 10 a.m., the school auditorium was packed with reporters, community members, and curious onlookers. Zaria wheeled herself onto the stage, followed by her parents, the business owner, his lawyer, and the mall manager. The crowd hushed as they took their places behind a table with microphones. "Thank you all for coming," the lawyer began. "We're here today to correct a serious misunderstanding that has caused harm to many people." He explained briefly what had happened, the accidental scratch, the kindness that followed, and how an edited version of the security footage had created a false narrative. Then it was Zaria's turn to speak. She rolled her wheelchair forward, heart pounding as she faced the crowd. Camera flashes popped around the room. She spotted some of her classmates in the audience watching wide-eyed. "My name is Zaria," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "Last Saturday I scratched a car with my wheelchair in the mall parking lot. I was scared because I didn't have money to pay for repairs. The owner of that car," she gestured to the business owner beside her, "was kind to me. He told me not to worry about the scratch. He even offered me a job at his company." She paused, gathering her courage before continuing. The video you've all been sharing online is not the truth. It was cut to make it look like something bad happened. But something good happened that day. I met someone who showed me kindness when I needed it. The business owner stepped forward next. I've been called many horrible names this week. My business has been vandalized. My employees have been harassed, all because someone decided to edit that video to tell a different story than what actually happened. The mall manager nodded to an assistant at the back of the room, and a large screen lowered from the ceiling. We're going to show you the complete, unedited security footage now, he announced. This has not been altered in any way. The room fell silent as the footage began to play. Everyone watched as the true story unfolded on screen. The accident, the conversation, the business card, the walk to the bus stop. When it ended, the silence in the room was deafening. Then, from the back, someone began to clap. Others joined in. The applause spread through the auditorium. A reporter stood up. Why would someone edit the footage this way? Who posted the original viral video? The lawyer stepped forward. We don't know yet, but we're investigating. What matters now is that the truth is out. Another reporter raised her hand. What happens next? Zaria and the business owner looked at each other. Neither had planned beyond this moment, beyond simply correcting the record. Well, Zaria said, smiling slightly, I think I might take him up on that job offer. The audience laughed, breaking the tension. The business owner nodded. And I think we have a lot to talk about. How quickly people believe what they see. Online. How dangerous edited videos can be. How important it is to get the whole story before making judgments. As the press conference ended and reporters rushed forward with more questions, Zaria felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The truth was out. People knew what really happened. But as she glanced at her phone and saw new notifications still pouring in, she realized that correcting a lie wasn't as simple as telling the truth once. Some people would still believe what they wanted to believe. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Yet for the first time since this whole mess began, she felt hopeful. The business owner caught her eye across the crowd and gave her a thumbs up. They had faced this together, and somehow they would get through what came next. 1 year later, Zaria wheeled herself through the doors of a brand new community center. The automatic doors slid open smoothly, just one of many accessibility features in the building. She smiled as she entered the main hall where volunteers were setting up chairs and hanging a banner that read, Truth in Media 1 year later. So much had changed since that press conference where they had revealed the unedited security footage. The days following it had been challenging. Some people still clung to the original viral story, unwilling to accept they had been misled. But gradually, the tide had turned. Major news networks had picked up the full story, focusing on how easily misinformation could spread and the real-world consequences it had on innocent people. Several popular YouTubers had created videos analyzing how the original footage had been deceptively edited, using it as a teaching moment about media literacy. There you are, called a familiar voice. The business owner walked toward her carrying a stack of programs for the evening's event. I was worried you might be late. Me? Late for our anniversary? Zaria laughed. No way. It was exactly 1 year since the press conference that had cleared both their names. In that time, they had formed an unexpected partnership. What began as weekly meetings to handle ongoing media requests had evolved into a friendship and eventually a shared mission. How many people are we expecting tonight? Zaria asked, looking around the hall. About 200, he replied, plus the online viewers. He gestured toward the camera setup at the back of the room. The live stream already has thousands of people waiting. Zaria nodded, feeling a flutter of nervousness in her stomach. Public speaking had become a regular part of her life over the past year, but she still got butterflies before big events. The community center they were in hadn't existed a year ago. It had been the business owner's idea to take the negative experience they had shared and turn it into something positive. He had donated the land, a vacant lot his company owned, and together they had raised funds to build a place dedicated to disability awareness, media literacy, and community dialogue. Your parents here yet? he asked, checking his watch. On their way, Mom's bringing the cake. They had a lot to celebrate. The nonprofit organization they had founded together, The Full Picture, had just received a major grant to expand their educational programs to schools across the country. Zaria had been accepted to college with a full scholarship, planning to study communications with a focus on media ethics. And the business owner's company had not only recovered from the backlash, but had grown, thanks in part to his new reputation as an advocate for truth in media. As they made final preparations for the event, Zaria thought back to that Saturday in the mall parking lot. One small accident, one act of kindness, one manipulated video, and the course of her life had changed completely. The doors opened again, and people began to arrive. Local community members who had supported them, teachers who had used their story in classrooms, former protesters who had eventually become allies once they learned the truth. Even the mall security chief who had helped them access the unedited footage. Zaria's parents arrived with the cake and hugs for everyone. Her father had become good friends with the business owner, often joining him for basketball games on weekends. Her mother had taken a position on the board of their nonprofit. "Ready?" the business owner asked as it neared time to begin. Zaria nodded, wheeling herself to the stage. A ramp had been built alongside the steps, another accessibility feature that now seemed so obvious but had once been overlooked. The room quieted as they took their positions on stage. The business owner stepped up to the microphone first. "Thank you all for coming tonight," he began. "1 year ago, Zaria and I were strangers brought together by an accident, an act of kindness, and then a viral lie. Today, we're partners in something much bigger than ourselves." He spoke about their journey, not just the viral video, but what had come after, how they had used their platform to speak about the dangers of accepting edited content at face value. How they had worked with schools to develop media literacy programs, how they had advocated for better accessibility in public spaces. When it was Zaria's turn to speak, she wheeled forward and adjusted the microphone. "When I was first diagnosed with my condition, I thought my life was over," she said honestly. "I thought the wheelchair meant I would always be limited. Then came that day in the parking lot and the craziness that followed. And somehow through all of that I found my voice." She looked out at the audience, at the faces of people who had supported them, and even some who had initially believed the worst about them. "The most powerful lesson I've learned is that the truth matters, but so does forgiveness. Some of you in this room once believed that horrible video. You posted angry comments. You joined protests. But when you learned the truth, you were brave, enough to admit you were wrong. That takes courage." She paused, letting her words sink in. "We've all made judgments based on incomplete information. What matters is how we respond when we learn the full truth." After their speeches, they played a short documentary they had created, featuring interviews with experts on misinformation, people who had been harmed by viral falsehoods, and young students learning to question what they see online. As the evening wound down and people mingled over cake and coffee, a young girl approached Zaria. She looked about 12 and used forearm crutches to walk. "I saw your story online," the girl said shyly. "My mom showed me the video about what really happened. It made me feel less scared." "Scared of what?" Zaria asked gently. "Of people seeing me different because of these." She tapped one of her crutches. "You seemed so strong in all those interviews." Zaria smiled. "Can I tell you a secret? I was terrified, but I learned that being scared and being strong can happen at the same time." Later, as they were cleaning up after the event, the business owner found Zaria looking thoughtfully out the window. "Penny for your thoughts?" he asked. "I was just thinking about how different things might have been if someone hadn't edited that security footage," she replied. "If the real video had spread instead of the fake one." He nodded. "Or if I'd gotten angry about the scratch instead of remembering my brother and how people treated him." "Small moments," Zaria mused. "That's all it takes to change everything." "Speaking of changes," he said, "did you tell them about your internship?" Zaria grinned. She had recently been offered a summer position at a major news network, working on a special series about fact-checking and verification in the digital age. "I'll announce it next time," she said. Tonight was about looking back. Next time we'll talk about the future. As they turned off the lights in the community center that bore both their names on the dedication plaque, Zaria felt a sense of peace. What had begun as the worst week of her life had somehow led to this: purpose, friendship, and a platform to make real change in the world. One scratch on one car on one ordinary Saturday, and nothing had been the same since.